Ever wonder why that travel influencer you follow suddenly stopped posting Bali sunsets? Or why your cousin, the adventurous backpacker, cut her Asia trip short this year? Number 10. Bali. Indonesia. Bali was once the Instagram capital of the world. Now, the magic's fading fast. In late July, Indonesian authorities bulldozed nearly 50 cliffside bars, moorings, and guest houses at Bingan Beach, many run for decades under traditional rites. Entire communities vanished overnight. Meanwhile, Bali's waste system is collapsing. Plastic is washing onto paradise beaches, and traffic in Canggu is a nightmare. Digital nomads have driven rents sky high, pushing locals out. A moratorium on new hotels was promised in 2024, then quietly killed in 2025. Now the island's overbuilt, undermanaged, and even some travel magazines are urging tourists to stay away until it gets its act together. Paradise is showing its dark side, and it's not pretty, it's not random. It's 2025, and across Asia, countries that once lived off tourism are now gasping for visitors. Resorts shutting early, souvenir shops abandoned, hotels slashing prices just to fill rooms. The collapse isn't coming, it's here, and the real reasons, they're not on the travel brochures. Forget the feel-good headlines. This is about hidden economic cracks, political tension, climate punches, and street-level chaos you were never meant to see. Let's count down the 10 destinations where tourism is falling apart right now. 09. Kashmir, India, and Pakistan. Once postcard perfect, Kashmir is now struggling to keep tourists. In early 2025, violent clashes near key tourist routes forced India to shut dozens of sites in Jammu and Kashmir. Hotels emptied overnight. On Pakistan's side, areas like Neelam Valley were quietly closed due to rising tensions. Even when curfews lifted, foreign tourists stayed away. Guest houses now offer huge discounts and still sit empty. Locals call it their worst season in years. The hospitality is still there, but right now, it's speaking through silence.
8. Nepal. They call it the roof of the world, but right now, Nepal feels empty. In 2025, the government made a bold move. They raised the cost of climbing permits for Mount Everest from $11,000 to $15,000. The hope? More revenue from fewer climbers. The reality? A mass exodus. Many climbers simply chose other peaks, or other countries. Sherpa communities, which rely almost entirely on mountaineering season, saw their main source of income vanish. The once bustling trekking routes through Annapurna, Everest Base Camp, and Langtang now feel like ghost trails. And the problems don't end there. The European Union still has Nepal's main international airport on its aviation safety blacklist, making some major European airlines unwilling, or unable, to fly in. Several big European tour operators have completely removed Nepal from their itineraries, cutting off a stream of reliable, high-spending visitors. Meanwhile, climate change is reshaping the very landscape tourists come to see. Melting glaciers are causing more landslides, rockfalls, and flash floods. Trails have been washed away, mountain passes have become unstable, and whole sections of trekking routes are closed without notice. A lodge owner in Lukla, the gateway to Everest, summed it up with painful honesty: "We used to turn people away. Now we're begging them to stay." What was once one of the most iconic destinations on Earth is now quietly fighting to survive. 7. Thailand. The beaches still sparkle, the temples still rise golden in the sun. The street food still fills the air with spice and smoke. But behind the postcard images, Thailand's tourism engine is sputtering. When Chinese visitors, once the country's biggest market, dropped off in 2023 and 2024, Thailand shifted focus to the rest of the world. The good news? Tourists did come. The bad news? They came with tighter wallets. Budget travelers are filling hostels, but mid-range and luxury hotels are struggling. Tour operators say they're working harder than ever, but barely breaking even. And the experience for visitors isn't what it used to be. Scams are booming. From fake visa agencies that vanish with your money, to tuk-tuk rides with inflated prices, to jet ski rentals that mysteriously find damage after you return them. These petty hustles chip away at Thailand's image as a welcoming, hassle-free destination. Then came March 2025. Political protests in Bangkok turned violent, prompting travel warnings from multiple countries. Tourist numbers dipped again, and even long-time Thailand regulars began to reconsider their trips. Meanwhile, the country's natural treasures are under siege. Coral reefs, already battered by over-tourism, are bleaching and dying. Some beaches have been closed to recover, but the damage may be irreversible. Many experienced tourism workers, tired of unstable income and rising costs, have left for other industries entirely. Thailand is still the land of smiles. But the smiles are strained, and the machine that once ran effortlessly is running on empty. 6. Cambodia. Siem Reap was once alive with the hum of tuk-tuks, the chatter of tourists fresh from exploring Angkor Wat, and the clink of glasses in busy night markets. Now, the streets feel hollow. Shop doors are shuttered, hotels stand half empty, and the familiar rhythm of Cambodia's tourism heartbeat has slowed to a whisper. Even with visa-free entry rolled out to attract visitors, tourist numbers remain stubbornly low, around 40% below pre-pandemic levels. The government's heavy reliance on Chinese investment, once seen as a quick path to prosperity, has backfired badly. Cities like Sihanoukville, once marketed as up-and-coming coastal gems, have transformed into hubs for sprawling casinos, shady online gambling operations, and human trafficking rings. The international press hasn't been kind, and travelers have taken note. Western tourists, once a reliable presence, are skipping Cambodia entirely in favor of neighbors like Vietnam, which offers cleaner streets, safer cities, and stronger infrastructure. The economic fallout is stark. Over 3,000 tourism-related businesses have closed for good, guesthouses, restaurants, craft shops, all gone. Many tuk-tuk drivers, faced with empty streets and unpaid bills, have abandoned their hometowns and crossed the border to Thailand or Vietnam to survive. This isn't a seasonal dip. It's not just a rough year. For Cambodia's tourism industry, this feels like a full-scale collapse, and the road back looks long and uncertain. 5. Sri Lanka. In 2019, Sri Lanka was at the top of the travel world, Lonely Planet's #1 destination, and a rising star in global tourism. Golden beaches framed by swaying palms, emerald green tea plantations cascading down misty hills, ancient temples steeped in history, and national parks teeming with elephants and leopards. It was a place that seemed to have it all. Planes arrived full, trains rattled with camera-wielding travelers, and the tourism economy thrived. Fast forward to 2025, and the golden moment feels like a lifetime ago. Visitor numbers remain down a staggering 55% compared to 2018, a crippling gap for a country where tourism was once a cornerstone of the economy. The slide wasn't caused by a single blow, but by a relentless series of crises that reshaped how the world sees Sri Lanka. The trouble began in 2022. A combination of political unrest, soaring inflation, fuel shortages, and street protests made international headlines. Images of long queues at gas stations, demonstrators clashing with police, and the government teetering on collapse replaced the glossy beach photos in travelers' minds. Even after the chaos eased, the damage was done, the perception of instability stuck. Those who did come often found higher prices waiting for them. Fuel and food costs pushed up hotel rates, while transport became less reliable. Safety concerns lingered, sometimes more in rumor than reality, but enough to make cautious travelers choose somewhere else. Then came the ghost hotels, huge, Chinese-funded mega-resorts built in the boom years to welcome an influx of high-spending tourists. Today, many stand eerily silent, their vast lobbies echoing with emptiness, pools drained or gathering algae, and staff reduced to skeleton crews. What was meant to be a glittering symbol of prosperity has become a monument to what was lost. As if that weren't enough, Sri Lanka's position in the Indian Ocean makes it acutely vulnerable to climate shocks. Seasonal floods wash through lowland towns and coastal areas. Droughts parch tea fields and hotel water tanks alike. Sometimes, just as high season begins, water shortages strike, forcing resorts to truck in supplies or turn guests away. For many in the tourism industry, survival has become a daily grind. Smaller guest houses and tour operators, once the heartbeat of Sri Lanka's warm, personal hospitality, are shutting the doors. Communities that once relied on tourism dollars are turning back to farming, fishing, or leaving altogether in search of work abroad. Experts warn that if trends continue, 2025 could mark Sri Lanka's worst tourism year in 2 decades. For a nation once celebrated as the crown jewel of South Asia, the question is no longer how to top the must-visit lists. It's whether the industry can recover at all before another crisis hits. 4. Philippines. 7,000 islands. A coastline longer than the United States. Beaches so pristine they look like they've been stolen from a screensaver, stitched together with lagoons, coral reefs, and jungle-covered mountains. For years, the Philippines seemed destined to be a tourism juggernaut, a place where word of mouth alone could keep the planes full and the resorts booked. But in 2025, that magic is slipping. Between January and April, only 2.1 million visitors touched down. It's not just below last year's totals, it's a far cry from the pre-pandemic highs that once made airport terminals and ferry docks feel like rush-hour train stations. The government set an ambitious target of 8.4 million arrivals for the year, but at the current pace, 6 million might be optimistic. The challenge isn't what the Philippines has, it's how it delivers it. While neighbors like Vietnam and Thailand have gone all in on aggressive marketing, visa-free entry expansions, and major infrastructure upgrades, the Philippines has been slow to adapt. International airports are often cramped and outdated, domestic flights are prone to delays, and ferry schedules are notorious for sudden cancellations. Road travel can be a slog, with congested city exits and long, bumpy rides between attractions. For travelers seeking seamless connections between islands, these bottlenecks turn dream itineraries into logistical headaches. Luxury travelers, who bring the biggest per capita spend, are especially hard to court. Palawan and Boracay boast world-class resorts, but the lack of consistent high-end infrastructure, coupled with patchy internet, unreliable transport, and uneven service standards, makes the country a harder sell than Bali, Phuket, or even emerging Vietnamese beach hubs like Da Nang. Budget travelers aren't immune to frustration either. Rising food and transport costs are eating into the Philippines' once unbeatable value proposition. Then there's the storytelling gap. Vietnam is flooding feeds with cinematic drone shots and cultural travel campaigns. Thailand is reinventing itself with slick branding and influencer partnerships. The Philippines, by contrast, has grown quieter, its social media presence feeling scattered, its global image relying heavily on independent travel bloggers rather than coordinated national promotion. The buzz that once made Boracay or Siargao seem irresistible now struggles to cut through the noise of regional competitors. And while nature remains the country's strongest asset, it's also increasingly under threat. Coral bleaching is accelerating in key dive spots. Overcrowding in fragile areas is damaging ecosystems and pushing travelers toward less exploited alternatives in Indonesia or Malaysia. Typhoons, sometimes striking multiple times in a single season, are becoming stronger and more unpredictable, upending plans and causing costly cancellations for operators. Still, the Philippines is far from finished. The sunsets in Boracay still turn the sky to molten gold. Palawan's limestone cliffs still rise like cathedrals from turquoise seas. Camiguin's volcanoes still watch over quiet, palm-fringed beaches. But beauty alone doesn't guarantee growth anymore. Without bold investments in infrastructure, sharper marketing, and a strategic push to diversify its tourism base, the Philippines risks fading into the background, an unforgettable paradise that too many travelers simply pass by on their way to somewhere else. 3. Vietnam. Vietnam's tourism story over the past decade has been nothing short of remarkable. Once a backpacker favorite for its affordability and raw authenticity, the country has transformed into one of Asia's most versatile travel destinations, welcoming everyone from gap-year travelers to luxury cruise passengers. In the first 5 months of 2025 alone, 9.2 million visitors arrived, a figure that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. The growth seems unstoppable, with international arrivals smashing records and major cities buzzing with new hotels, restaurants, and tour offerings. But beneath the headline numbers, cracks are beginning to show. Vietnam's tourism boom is built on a foundation that's far more fragile than it looks. The country's reliance on a steady stream of inbound flights and a handful of major attractions leaves it highly vulnerable to sudden disruptions. In May, Tropical Storm Whiffer swept across the northern coast, grounding flights, flooding coastal towns, and forcing thousands of tourists to cut their trips short. Just weeks later, a Ha Long Bay cruise tragedy claimed 35 lives, sending shockwaves through the global travel community and prompting safety concerns about Vietnam's overloaded maritime tourism industry. The impact was immediate. Bookings dipped, and international headlines shifted from glowing travel features to grim news reports. Even in calmer months, Vietnam's infrastructure is feeling the strain of its own success. Airports in Hanoi, Da Nang, and Ho Chi Minh City are operating near capacity, with crowded terminals and delayed flights becoming more common. Popular beaches like Nha Trang and Phu Quoc are showing signs of erosion, while heritage sites such as Hoi An's ancient town are battling over-tourism, narrow streets jammed with visitors, rising waste levels, and the slow erosion of local culture under the weight of souvenir stalls and tourist-oriented businesses. The rapid development that fuels the boom is also creating longer-term risks. Coastal resorts are multiplying, often at the expense of mangroves and natural buffers that protect shorelines from storms. Environmental safeguards lag behind construction, and critics warn that unchecked growth could damage the very landscapes and ecosystems that draw visitors in the first place. Yet, the allure of Vietnam remains undeniable. The food scene continues to win global awards, from humble pho stalls to upscale fusion dining. The train ride from Da Nang to Hue still threads its way through one of the most beautiful coastal stretches in the world. The limestone peaks of Ha Long Bay still rise like ancient guardians over emerald waters. But the balance between growth and sustainability is precarious. If Vietnam can reinvest its tourism profits into stronger infrastructure, tighter safety regulations, and more sustainable environmental management, it may continue its meteoric rise. If not, the same speed that lifted it. 2. Jordan. Petra's rose-red facades. Wadi Rum's endless desert valleys. The shimmering waters of the Dead Sea. For decades, Jordan has been a bucket list destination, blending history, adventure, and Middle Eastern hospitality into one irresistible package. From the bustling streets of Amman to the silent majesty of the desert, it was a place that offered both thrill and tranquility. But in 2025, that magic is fading fast. The challenges start with the economy. Inflation is biting hard, driving up the cost of everything from hotel rooms to a simple plate of falafel. For visitors on a budget, Jordan no longer feels like the affordable Middle Eastern gem it once was. At the same time, rising flight costs have made it harder for long-haul travelers to justify the journey. Even those who do make the trip are finding their money doesn't go as far as it used to. Regional tensions have added another layer of uncertainty. Jordan itself remains relatively stable, but ongoing unrest in neighboring countries has created a perception, especially among Western travelers, that the entire region is risky. This perception, fair or not, has been enough to scare off tour groups, cruise lines, and big international operators. The impact has been devastating. Tourism, once a $5 billion a year powerhouse for Jordan's economy, is now limping along at its weakest pace in over a decade. The human toll is impossible to ignore. More than 80,000 tourism-related jobs have disappeared. Bedouin guides who once led camel treks through Wadi Rum's sandstone valleys are now pleading for government support. In Petra, one of the new 7 wonders of the world, souvenir stalls that used to buzz with haggling and laughter now stand half empty. In Amman and the Kaaba, hotel owners talk about shutting entire wings to save on electricity and staff costs. And even when visitors come, they're spending less. Jordan is losing the big spending package tour travelers who booked multi-day adventures, luxury stays, and guided excursions. Instead, it's seeing a new PTICK in short-stay regional visitors who spend less per day and skip many of the country's top attractions. For an industry built on drawing travelers from across the globe, this shift has been a painful downgrade. To make matters worse, the country is feeling the strain on its iconic sites. Petra is facing erosion and damage from the few but constant streams of tourists who still visit. The Dead Sea is receding at an alarming rate, threatening both its environmental uniqueness and the resorts that depend on it. Infrastructure improvements, like better transport links or new visitor facilities, have been slow to materialize, leaving Jordan lagging behind competitors in the Middle East and North Africa. For a nation where tourism is more than an economic lifeline, where it serves as a bridge between cultures and a source of national pride, the slowdown is more than just a business problem. It's a loss of connection, identity, and momentum. Jordan's golden age of tourism isn't just on pause, it's at risk of fading into history, leaving only the echoes of the crowds that once filled its ancient streets. 1. Maldives. For decades, the Maldives was the ultimate fantasy, a constellation of turquoise atolls scattered across the Indian Ocean, where overwater villas offered travelers their own slice of paradise. But in 2025, the dream is cracking, both literally and figuratively. Tourism isn't just important here, it's everything. It makes up about 75% of the Maldives' foreign exchange earnings. And yet, a diplomatic fallout with India, one of its biggest source markets, has slashed Indian arrivals by 40%. That blow comes on top of rising global travel costs, which are pushing budget and mid-range travelers toward cheaper island alternatives in Southeast Asia. The economic ripple effects are brutal. Debt has ballooned to over 113% of GDP, much of it tied to Chinese-funded mega-resorts that are now struggling to fill rooms. Some of the most exclusive private islands, once booked months in advance, are quietly offering steep discounts to keep occupancy from collapsing. Staff layoffs are becoming common, and tour boats sit idle in lagoons that once teemed with divers and honeymooners. Meanwhile, the environmental clock is ticking. The Maldives is one of the most climate-vulnerable nations on Earth. Rising seas are already eating away at beaches. Coral bleaching is killing the reefs that support its famed diving industry. Flooding during king tides now disrupts everyday life, and in some cases, damages resort infrastructure. The Maldives became a global symbol of luxury escape. But if the twin crises of economic fragility and climate change keep deepening, that image could vanish as quickly as the islands themselves. Paradise isn't just under threat, it's on borrowed time.